My apologies. This is part 2 to the quote from Ben Shapiro: CEOs should live in fear. And this is also a lesson on propaganda and Ben Shapiro's hypothetical feelings arguments. Let this be a lesson, because this is truly the quote that you see in the title is what Ben Shapiro said. But in his The Art of War way of using media, I clipped it from the center of a sentence. So the context is different than what the meaning I gave it. And that's what Ben does. Be not mistaken. Some more news and some many other great YouTubers have pulled down the facade that Ben Shapiro puts up when he misattributes a stat in the context that it's meant to be. So this is a Ben Shapiro quote: CEOs should live in fear. But I just took it from the middle of the sentence. I didn't quote the rest of the sentence. Jacob, okay, you can hear me now. So this is part 2. Part 2 of CEOs should live in fear. If you missed the first part, please, it's a video before this, go watch. We're talking about comedian Bill Burr, and guy who didn't know who he was, who Bill Burr says, I didn't know who Ben Shapiro is. He's just some jerk off that said that if he called me woke, he would make more money. That is the quote that we're talking about. Article down below. I am Squeaky Wheel. Good, you can hear me now? Awesome, thank you. I don't know if you could hear me, Squeaky Wheel, on the last live say that you should, if your uncle's still alive, you should do a YouTube video with him making dandelion wine. That should be trending. And I said it'll probably get drowned out by Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast wannabes survive, or a Mr. Beast video. His third video this month, surviving 7 days in an abandoned house. That's all he does now. So CEOs should live in fear. A thing that Ben Shapiro said. But he said it defending CEOs. See, Ben, everybody can manipulate stats and quotes and things, not just you. But I'm going to tell you the honest truth. He was using that in the center of a sentence to say, oh, so Bill Burr thinks CEOs should live in fear because Bill doesn't agree with what they do. And that's the premise that we're talking about. And I say yes, but not for any other reason than CEOs should live in crippling anxiety about the decisions, the policies, the deny, defund, depose policy. Before it was written on bullets, that was their policy. Where do you think he got it? You didn't make that up. Whoever did it, whatever CIA assassin did that to him. But that's their policy. And those CEOs should be living in crippling fear of what they're doing to society. And I was trying to make the parallel that if you just recycle, something as simple as recycling, if you don't use plastic straws, if you're like, I seen that sea turtle video with the plastic straw getting pulled out of its nose, and instead of thinking, oh, what a dumb sea turtle, it thought plastic straw was food, you think, I don't need a straw, I can sip it through a cup, I don't need the straw. Not if I'm going to see an ancient, beautiful being get destroyed because of our lack of humanity. So if you operate in any sense to recycle for thinking outside of yourself, like you are like, well, I want to visit, whatever national park hopefully isn't sold off to the highest bidder soon, to some corporation. Hopefully Time Warner doesn't own Yellowstone soon. Not the show, but the place. Yeah, that's happening. I talked about that the other day. I saw this video titled "Eating a Straw to Show Turtles Are Weak." Yeah, so if you're Mr. Beast cures 100 people of non-wokeness. So Jacob, the video you saw, "Eating a Straw to Show Turtles Are Weak," that was parody, right? This is like a satire. Or because I believe that there's people like Joe Rogan out there who would do that and mean it seriously, but that is like the most funny concept. Especially if you were trying to eat the straw and you were choking and you ended up saying at the end of the video, like, I died in this process. It was like, that's hilarious. That is the humor we need. But they do it seriously. I hate what some CEOs do. I am Squeaky Wheel. No one should live in fear of being hurt or murdered for looking after their work over public interest. I don't like the CEOs, but they don't deserve to be hurt. Now, I'm not saying deserve to be hurt. I've not said that once. But I do say, if CEOs think that their policies, if the way they operate, and remember, we're talking about United Health Insurance CEO, their whole business strategy is to be the gatekeepers. Means they deny access to the healthcare that we as a civilization has worked towards a millennia, since dinosaurs, since the first guy figured out this plant makes you feel better, till now. They don't have doctors that work for them. They don't have scientists working on breakthroughs. The insurance company is just the paper men, the bill collectors that say, no, that will cost too much, even though you pay us already. And we need bigger profit margins for our shareholders. So I think they absolutely need to live in fear. But my reason is the same reason you live in fear. And again, little extreme wording. But my whole premise is that if you recycle, if you think recycling is good for you and the planet, well, good for the planet, hence good for you, because you can go and visit your favorite vacation spot without expecting trash everywhere or without it being turned into a landfill. If you think just recycling is good, then guess what? Guess what? This is a stretch, the wording, I know, language is important, but you're living in fear that you might destroy the planet, that we all are, right? CEOs have no concern for how their policies, what their business entirely operates on, that enough kids, women, old people will die. And that's who's affected by this. Make no mistake. Yeah, there's some men in there, but disproportionately, this is affecting, the most vulnerable in society. They should live in fear, because if you push people to all those, watch any movie on it. What is it, John Q? Watch any movie on this, and you'll see the dystopian reality that some people go when they feel they've lost all hope. And that's why so many people were shocked when they alleged it was Luigi. He's innocent till proven guilty. Luigi did not do it. This is probably like an assassin. This CEO that got murked was embroiled in a lot of insider trading lawsuits and all that stuff, allegedly. So thank you, Patty Laura. Hit subscribe, hit the Melita Bay. Oh, a lot of people saying pretty eyes. Oh, wow. Well, hit subscribe for more pretty eyes, please. And come for the woke mind virus, and stay for the woke mind virus. We're just talking about, if you recycle, I don't know what your reason is for recycling. I would like to think a lot of people do. Then you have compassion, you have empathy, you worry about what's going on with the planet. That's why we recycle. That's the only reason we recycle. There's no other reason. People aren't like, we need more fuel. Nobody's figured that out yet. This is not Back to the Future. And I say CEOs should live in fear. Ben Shapiro, liar, hypotheticalist, he's always saying, let's say, defended CEOs. And I say, don't defend them. They should live with the repercussions of what their business does. It's like if you owned a business that was we burn tires and you just had a tire fire business. At some point, you got to be concerned, like, oh my God, people can't come to my business anymore because everything is black smog. You would hopefully have some foresight. And these capitalists have no foresight except for what is Wall Street's expectations. What is next quarter's Wall Street's expectations? That's all they care about. They don't care about the people that die. They don't care about the wake of bodies. And I just want you to imagine, because a lot of people like to defend CEOs like Ben Shapiro. And I'm not saying you do, but I just want you, if you have ever thought about defending CEOs, defending their tax breaks, saying that, oh, they're just human, I want you to then put yourself in their shoes. And you have to decide whether a 5-year-old kid with a disability gets a new wheelchair or not. And he needs this. This is doctor recommended. That's, these people are like, hey, the doctor is proving for us, because this is the process we have to go through. We have to have a doctor prove that this kid with a disability needs a new wheelchair, and they're denying it and making the mom go to court for years just to fight for a wheelchair that by now that the years have passed, he already needs a different wheelchair. And those years he went with the inadequate wheelchair. Sorry. So if you're going to defend or take the side of CEOs, which they ain't your friend, then I want you to put yourself in their shoes, and think, well, if I had to keep making these decisions every day, and yes, you're going to go, they don't make the decisions. They're the ones that oversee that the decisions are made. They are the ones they take. When the Nazis said we were just following orders, they're the ones that are giving the orders, folks. And I want you to think of how you would sleep at night And that's why these people are not your friends, because they don't miss a wink, and they buy better beds, and they buy youth serums, and they buy oxygen tanks, and they go on vacations, and they do all this stuff knowing that their profits are blood money. They didn't use a weapon, they used pen and paper to deny people getting access to the care that we as a civilization have worked towards for a millennia. Since the dawn of man, this is all we've tried to do, is heal our boo-boos. Jesus Christ. Preach, preach. Damon. Hey, what's up, everybody? Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm Rob. I do a live news commentary, I call it newsmentary, show every weekday. So you can join me tomorrow, and I love talking to people, and I love having some dialogue, even if we don't agree. But I'm just saying, this is the take you're going to get here. My narrative is based off of being a worker, a working poor, being someone who lost my parents at a young age. I've been homeless. I help organize. I have a long and storied history that we can get into another time. In fact, tomorrow I was thinking about showing my paycheck as my thumbnail. The week I was sick, worked 2 days and made $5 for 13 hours of work. I think that's going to be my thumbnail tomorrow. So please hit subscribe and then hit the notification bell so you could join me whenever I go live. So if you're a CEO and your whole business operates on the more people that die, the more profit we get, you should live in fear, wouldn't you? I mean, I fret if I do something that I think could have hurt somebody else, and I will spend time thinking, oh man, that was horrible. I hope that doesn't hurt anybody. Think about this. If you broke a glass in your house and you lived with a lot of people, would you just leave it and be like, you know what? My time is worth money, and me cleaning up isn't worth the amount that I could make doing something else. So if people get their feet all cut up, well, that's just life. That's the CEO mindset. But their house is society, and their business is broken glass everywhere. That's a, I think that's a couple of different songs. Broken glass everywhere. Walking on broken. Anyways, James Scarface. Question, is YouTube messing up the economy? That is a good question. I would say YouTube is messing up the YouTube economy because they keep bumping up. And there was just an article about this. People like Mr. Beast, and they're silencing any kind of thought or real dialogue. I keep getting Tim Pool ads in my feed, and I'm like, maybe he paid for this with the Russian money he got because he's a Russian puppet. But my Jesus, Tim Pool is a horrible recommendation for me. That kid is just a poser. He is just not, there is no serious conversation that man can have. Everything is kind of a joke. But people getting paid from YouTube, I'm not one of those people. I wish I was. Hit subscribe and notification bell. But I think YouTube is a brilliant job. Like when everybody's made the joke, everybody has a podcast, I would say good. Because there are so many interesting points from people who specialize in certain things. And I think, that's good. That's the whole point. But that is a great question, Damon. And if you hit subscribe and hit the notification bell and bring it up a different time, we will go into it. Because this is my second live stream. If you're catching this one, there's one right before it. I got muted. So Oh, that was gross. Sorry. So I got muted, so I had to start a second live stream. But we're talking about Bill Burr and Ben Shapiro. Ben, let's say Shapiro, the hypothetical debate god who at 40 years old is going to colleges and debating freshmen. I want you to think about that. I don't know who you think is an intellect, but could you imagine if you thought, like, I think Noam Chomsky is pretty smart, right? And if he was doing videos while he was in his 30s and 40s of him being like, I went to college to dunk on freshmen on their intellectual stupidity, on their tiny intellects, I wouldn't think that person was smart anymore. And somehow that's like Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, maybe not Tim Pool, who's it? Ben Shapiro. There's another dude, Charlie Kirk. Like their whole YouTube thing is like, I went and debated the most junior kids, the most fresh faces in college, and dunked on them because I am smarter. It's like, well, I would hope so. You look like you've been out of college for 15 years. Like, what? How is this? This isn't intellectual debate anymore. I just see a lot of workers, they need closing down business because no one wants to work. Damon, that is not true. Ooh, you're gonna start me off on a tangent. Don't say that. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to be exploited anymore, Damon. And let me tell you that as somebody who's looking for a second job. My wife works 2 jobs. I know people that were working 3 jobs. And the issue is that a lot of these companies don't pay people enough to even afford to live. There was a recent stat that came out that said in 1991, the average homeowner was purchasing a home at 28. By 2000, it was like 31. By 2024, it's 38. Why is that? It's not because nobody wants to work, so no one can afford a house. I mean, I need you to think, David. This is like basic shit. This is like common sense 101. Nobody wants to be exploited anymore, and nobody's paying. This is why tomorrow we'll talk about this, because I will show you my paycheck for 13 hours, 2 days of work when I was sick. I made $5.55. Okay? And I took a photo of it because people don't believe me. But I'm just telling you, stop. I hear people say nobody wants to work. And I'm like, I know people working 3 jobs. They can't fucking make rent. It's not, businesses are closing down because they don't pay enough. Businesses are closing down because Amazon exploits workers, don't pay enough, and buys up everything. That was Amazon's whole business strategy to begin. We're going to pay the lowest prices, including wages, and we are going to undercut all the competition and then buy them out so nobody else exists. I mean, if you're upset that there's a local business by you going out of business, I would highly look into what they sell and if it's being taken out by Target and Walmart. That's all that exists in America. Target, Walmart, Amazon, CVS. And even they can't exploit their workers enough. So that is just CEO propaganda. Nobody wants to work anymore. No, nobody wants to be exploited. They need good paying jobs, and those don't really exist anymore. I mean, the federal minimum wage is still at $7.25, even though the past 5 years, half a decade, has been inflation heavy, okay? So that is just not true, and I can't totally dive into that, but have I ever done a video on James Corden? Oh, I hate him. Up here in Alaska, the state pays you to live here because everything's so expensive and it's hard to live here. Yep, I've heard, yep. There's a few places that are like Alaska where they pay you to live. I knew a radio show that went up and did radio in Alaska, and they got, the state stipend or whatever. I think they were in Juneau. I forget where, but as soon as minimum wage up there is 16. Yeah, federally it's still $7.25, but a lot of places have raised it. Why? Because nobody can live on $7.25. So anyways, I just wanted to really point this out, because I don't care what you believe. Oh, what would you do if Skibbity Toilet invaded the United States? I would join the Skibbity Army. JM, just to be real with you. At this point, fuck who's running this country. I would join the Skibbity Toilet Army. I still think that whole concept of Skibbity Toilet, if you don't know what it is, it's an online YouTube video, and the bad guys and good guys are one guy with a head coming out of a toilet, and the other people are cameramen. And I said that was created by a creep. That is just weird. Just looking at it on its face, it is weird as hell, and kids love it. God bless them. I don't know. God bless them all. Phyllis Long, you're right. People want to work, they just don't want to work for crap wages. And Phyllis, I'm talking to you from, my wife's a nurse, okay? And she's paid well, and she's working 2 jobs. I have 1 job. We only have 1 car. I can't find another job because I can't work for another $15 an hour job. When people go, oh, just get a job. You got to understand, when you're working 2 minimum wage jobs, like here in Massachusetts, it's $15 an hour. I said, if I can punch in at Starbucks and Target at the same time, fucking awesome. I'm making $30 an hour. The problem is you can't do that. Okay, so you got to work 1 job that doesn't pay enough and go to another job that doesn't pay enough. So you're not making any more money. You're just working longer, and that's what the CEO class wants you to do. So it's completely not true. There are a lot of people that want to work, and I'm talking to you because I've been in the field for a while. I know a lot of people that are going through this. I know people with good jobs. I mean, in 2008, if you're too young to remember this, after the economy had collapsed and we bailed out the billionaires and we bailed out the banks, which in Iceland, I think they put them all in prison. Here in America, we did things different because left or right, doesn't matter if you're blue or red, same fucking wings on one bird. They're all corporate puppets. But we came up with a new word, underemployed, meaning people were highly intelligent and just took whatever job just to make money. Underemployed. Our American culture created the word underemployed for the horrendous situation. So people do want to work. It's just like MIT does a living wage calculator. I shared it the other day. It's in my community post. You can look it up. And the living calculator in Massachusetts is like $40-something an hour. That's what you need to make an hour just to be able to survive. That's survivable. And then they go into poverty wages, and I'm like, oh great, I'm at poverty wages. And And I want you to keep in mind, because when there's so much propaganda. People have been trained by the CEO propaganda, the lobbyists for businesses. And I've gone into the State House and testified against these lobbyists. And their propaganda is slick. You know, they're like, oh, well, if you pay people more, then people won't da-da-da-da-da, and whatever it is. And let me just say, if that was true, they couldn't afford to pay the CEO of Starbucks $60,000 an hour. If that was true, but they can. And they just want to utilize it to exploit and oppress one side of that. Because if we didn't have enough money, you wouldn't see these golden parachutes after CEOs get fired because they failed miserably for a year. People don't have enough money to put in their savings. Most families live in Massachusetts. Oh, I'm in Massachusetts too. Phyllis, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, please. Name is Fred Myers. It's a messed up. I missed most of that, Jacob. I'm very sorry. So I just wanted to address all this because I always hear people talking about the workers don't want to work. The workers just need to get a job. Just get an education. I'm like, you don't know how much education is in America? You come out more in debt than any job pays. It makes no sense. Make school free if you want people to get an education. I'm a graduate of college, and I'm fucking... And private equity decimated my industry of radio. You know, they came in and made everything about the stock prices and ruined it. Radio sucks now. That's why people are here on YouTube. Because radio is all Ryan Seacrest across the country, or someone like it, or racist right-wingers. I enjoy your channel. Thank you, Phyllis. I appreciate that. Salute to all the people, new subscribers. I go live every single weekday. There are a few words coming out of your mouth that I still don't understand. That's okay. One day you will. You are young, grasshopper. One day you will. So yeah, if you're gonna say people don't want to work, just save it. You know, if you got nothing good to say about the working class, just save it. It's just funny because I never hear those people being like, these CEOs are paid way too much. In the 60s, CEOs used to make 20 times what the average worker make. Now they make hundreds, if not thousands of times what the average worker makes. And they're not good either. There are more and more studies coming out about this company had an automated CEO. They had no CEO and made more profits. CEOs, it's a bunch of rich people who have formed a group to shake hands and pass the baton to each other while they fail expertly. I mean, just look at Elon Musk. He's living proof of how fucking dumb he is. So, 16 in Brazil, that's right. And JM does he creates on YouTube as well. He has a YouTube channel. That's the other thing I love promoting is other small YouTubers. So if you, not the Karate Kid quote, I'm old enough to remember that movie. I seen Karate Kid too in the theaters. Okay, my man, thanks for stopping in to share. I went to the beach here in Rio de Janeiro. I met an American. Just like Mr. Beast, I start talking. Don't say American. See, when we go overseas, everybody thinks we're Mr. Beast. That's funny, though. I would love to go see Rio de Janeiro. There's a very interesting story about I forget what hood, one of the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, about Michael Jackson filming his video, They Don't Care About Us, and needing approval from one of the gang lords. It's a fascinating story you can find on YouTube, but just the little thing I know about Rio de Janeiro. I think that's where it was. I could be wrong. So yeah, I didn't mean to go into a full-on tangent about people don't want to work anymore, but I won't accept that, and I have to address it on the spot and squash it out. So yeah, so I just need people to, what I really want to instigate is some thought, some critical thinking. When you hear Ben Shapiro, let's say Ben Shapiro, the guy who always starts things by saying, let's say, what that tells you right there is it hasn't happened. It's a hypothetical. Your feelings are overriding everything else for you to go, well, let's say if this happens. Imagine if you had a kid who every time they went to you and they said, Dad, well, let's say this happens. You'd go, calm down. It hasn't happened yet. And somehow people respect Ben Shapiro as like some fucking thought provocateur. The guy's whole basis exists on, well, fear. Potential fear could happen. And he's defending CEOs, saying they shouldn't live in fear because of how their businesses run. And I say, if your business is hell-bent on burning down the world and making people unhealthy, If your whole business, let's say you had a business and you said, we just light fires. We light fires everywhere. At some point, you got to think like, oh shit, we might run out of places to light fires. You know, we burnt all the forests. And these people are so short-sighted that they can't understand that if you keep making people sick, if you watch their children hurt and suffer, if you watch them have to endure pain, you know, if somebody has excruciating back pain and they're getting denied treatments and the stuff that doctors are like, you really need this, but your insurance says you don't. Every doctor says you do, but your insurance says you don't. What do you expect? You know, I wouldn't even take that job. But if you want to relate to CEOs, if you want to repeat their propaganda, people don't want to work, then put yourself in their shoes. If you recycle because you're worried about the environment, if you recycle because you care about animals, then think about denying people access to what humanity, insurers did not come up with medicine. They didn't develop these processes. They didn't fucking do any of this stuff. They just gatekeep it. And if they every day operate on making money, if their car they drive to work, their office building, their home is all built on the blood of others, it's all built on making sure people don't get access to the things they need, I would not be able to sleep. I would be in crisis mode all the time. Like, we got to fix this. We got to do something. No, we got to make sure, we got to figure out a way to, well, you can't make money if people are healthy. And that solved it for you. The money either blinds them or makes them turn a blind eye. 100%, Kristen Owens. Appreciate that comment, because that is 100. And the saddest part is, like, I've worked with some really, really wealthy people, and I've watched people, even not that wealthy people, I've watched people get into a position of power and everything changed. And it's sad, and it's hard to explain witnessing that happen to someone who you go, wow, they were a good person, but now, like, the money's too good and the company mission is something they fully believe in, even though when it hurt them, they were like, this sucks. As soon as it's the whole climb up and kick the ladder out from under you. And I hate that about society. And if you do too, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. I appreciate everybody who's been in the chat. And don't forget, there was a previous live stream before this. I went muted. But the other question I want to ask you, for all the left, right, democracy, we got to save democracy. We don't have a democracy. It's an oligarchy, okay? It's rich people buying their way to make the laws, to gut the government, to do what they want. But if you do believe in the democracy thing, let me ask you this. This is a puzzler. It's got an easy answer, but it might make people think. I want to ask you this one question. If you think voting, if you believe that we should all have access to healthcare, that if you get sick, you should just be able to see a doctor. When I got sick, I couldn't see a doctor. My paycheck was $5 for that week because insurance took so much money. And I couldn't make my copay, so I can't see a doctor and I'm sick. Conundrum. So here's my question to you. Do you think voting for all blue, if we voted all Democrats, we would get universal healthcare? I want you to really think about it. I know the answer. The answer is no. Doesn't matter if you voted, if the king is in control like he is now, the self-proclaimed king is running things, or if it was all Bernie Sanders. Do you think we here in America would get universal health care? Something that every other industrialized nation has figured out. They've all figured it out. They all have some kind of nationalized government health care. They all have some kind of health care where an ambulance ride doesn't make you go into debt, where hospitals don't call you from the billing department to collect on your child's needs that were met and now need to be paid for with the doctor, the hospital, the insurance. They don't have that. Okay. America is unique. That is American exceptionalism. I just want you to, if you're a believer in voting and democracy and all that, do you think that if we voted for all left-leaning whatever, that we would ever get universal health care? The answer is no. But do you know why? Because the insurance industry, that's their whole business model. They profit off of us suffering. They profit off of withholding that healthcare from us. They would never allow it. And they're the ones who actually run the country. Hey, Rob, did you hear about the healthcare worker interrupting surgery to ask? Yes, if it was necessary to keep the woman under. Yes. Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what insurance is. They're like, we got to keep paying for this anesthesia? No, call the doctor out here and say, is this necessary? Which that just shows you they have no one smart working there. Because anyone knows, one of my friends, her brother became an anesthesiologist, is a very difficult, like, people's lives are on the line, okay? That's a dangerous thing. And I didn't know much about it until I knew someone that became an anesthesiologist, and I'm saying that horribly. But the whole point is like, if you're under, at no point should you be like, oh, we've already paid $500. Bring him back. And they're like, he's still open. They're like, no, bring him back. Like, that's not even common sense. Never mind medical sense. But again, the propaganda from CEOs is they put out statements saying, we do this anesthesia time limits with the medical, with consulting of medical professionals. They say shit like that. Why? Because who's going to hold them to account? Unless you and I wake up and say, no medical professional ever. And I'm telling you that, I'm married to a nurse. Would ever say like, oh, once anesthesia costs too much, you have to stop the anesthesia. Like, it doesn't even make common sense. And people like Ben Shapiro out here defending it, saying, no, they shouldn't live in fear. It's like, bro, if that's your whole if that's how your business runs, you should be terrified that there's blood, that lives, that you sent souls to Hades, that you're sending souls to the river Styx without 2 pennies, or whatever you believe in. I don't care. It's all about the Benjamins. That's right. He's still open, but yeah, whatever. I'm laying here holding this art. What do you mean? We got to... They don't care unless it's them or someone they love. 100%. And Jesse Waters from Fox News, who's a joke and not a serious person, just put that on full display. He was cheering on the Doge cuts, the destruction of government by Elon cuts, until somebody, a white guy he knew, called him and said, hey, I got fired by Doge. And then he went on air. You can watch it. I watched it. It's hilarious. Jesse Waters, Fox News, went on air and said, we should really rethink how we're talking about the cuts Elon's making. And Jon Stewart, I think, said it best. He said, do you watch your own fucking show? Like, you're the one championing this. They only care if they get hurt. And most of the time, they're like, we're too rich. We have too good insurance. We can't get hurt. Like, we'll never have to experience not 5 vacations a year. So why do we care? And that's the epitome of what's wrong with society right now. And that's why I was talking about, if you recycle, it's because you care about an animal, a planet. Maybe you're saying my loved one forces me to recycle. Guess what? You're doing it because you care enough about them. Why can't we have that? And I always relate this back because I believe in Jesus. But I believe in Jesus as a nonviolent revolutionary who hated CEOs and capitalism. And that's just what's in the Bible, folks. But if you believe in Jesus who said, love your neighbor and love your enemy, how do you fucking get right with this? How do you get right with God? A guy who said, love your enemies. How do you get right with God of being mean to people who, voted for you? That's why I really have a problem with all the meme coins. They're robbing from people who made them that money. Anyways, getting all these females. Hey, what's up, Denise? Good to see you. Hit subscribe, people. I go live every weekday. I'll be live tomorrow. But after you hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. Hit the little notification bell so you can join me. Because I always say, I go live every weekday. I bring you news, commentary. We have a dialogue. We have a discussion. But I can't guarantee what time I go live. My schedule is very busy. So I just say, if you hit the notification bell, when I go live, you'll get notified. I would love for Phyllis, Denise, Kristen, Jacob, Blue Fire Flamethrower. That's a cool name. Do you do YouTube content? I need to see what that is. JM, of course, JM's here. If I missed anyone's name, I can't go all the way back through the chat, but I thank you. And if you just did to subscribe, I thank you so much. Trying to crack 1,700 subscribers. I've been at YouTube for a long time. I first started my channel in 2008. Jesus, this is the slowest growth in YouTube ever. So you could help me. You could change that. Hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell. We have a Discord where I link books and all these other amazing things. More education, more reading, more information. It's not a bad thing. Beware of the people that don't want you to read. Okay, well, let's end it with that. And Bill Burr is just the people's hero. He's the voice we need right now. Where's Taylor Swift? Taylor Swift, get in this fight. We're all fighting for this society, folks, and we can make it what we want it to be. We don't have to listen to corporate masters. That's my biggest problem with Killer Mike from the rap duo Run the Jewels. On Twitter, I wrote him, does your kill the masters motto apply to capitalism? And his response was so weak, so lame. I couldn't, but that's when I stopped liking Killer Mike. I mean, he's just a good capitalist. He's what Fred Hampton warned us about. Fred Hampton from the 70s, killed by the government, and the Chicago cops said, we're not going to fight capitalism with capitalism. We're going to fight capitalism with socialism. And if you're scared of socialism, you're scared of yourself. Socialism is the workers having the power, the workers benefiting, not just one guy at the top. Not going anywhere. I'm here to stay. I appreciate it. Jacob, subscriber house. I won't say that. But I will say I do appreciate when people subscribe. I love doing this. I do this for fun. I don't make money. The day you see me doing commercial for Tea Tree Toothpicks is the day you know we've made it. I want that to be my first sponsor. I'm never going to sell you crap. Rob, your channel's almost as old as me. Oh my God, that's... Oh, Jacob, not a good way to end. But I've been doing this for a long time. And, you know, we need to leave a better place for not only our kids, but for the animals, for the environment. And there are some people that are working actively against that. They do not care. So I refuse to stay silent. And I always think about this. I always position to this. The teachers, my kids' teachers, I don't know what they think of me, but I say this to my kids' teachers. I say this to my kids. I say this to bosses. I say, remember, there was a time in America where slavery was legal. And there were people who said, well, it's the law. They totally, and they believed in Christ, and they thought they were Christians, and they said, well, it's the law. And I say, man, if you can't see through, if your morality doesn't kick in, then there's a real issue there. And that's just lazy work on their behalf. Their character, they're not developing their character because they're lazy. So remember that. There were people during segregation, during the civil rights. You see all the photos of white people screaming in the background because a little black girl wanted to go to school. There were people that said it was the law, and that's how they wrote it off. And they wiped their hands of it and thought never again. And now they must be horrified and embarrassed looking back at those times. And when their grandkids say, well, what did you do? They probably lie. Morals should not be defined by laws. They can't be. They can't be. All right, guys, thank you so much. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, Discord link in the chat. All the articles I talk. Oh, I didn't get to tomorrow. We're going to have to talk about it. Smithsonian Magazine. This one was shocking, and I wanted to go into it, but we had other important things to discuss. Bill Burr, let's say Ben Shapiro. Let's say Shapiro, the hypothetical intellectualist. What a fucking oxymoron that is. But Smithsonian Magazine is highlighting these guys who developed a way to grow plants with electricity. Possibly the dumbest thing ever. They said, these guys are working on a way to grow plants, not by photosynthesis, but through electricity. And they said they'll put solar panels on the roof of a building and grow plants inside. And I thought, why are you coming up with shit that nature's already figured out? We don't. Plants just need the sun, not electricity. We don't need more electricity. They want solar power to generate electricity to go grow plants. This is not a joke.